Hello there, and welcome to the Goodness Village podcast, aka the Good Pod. My name is Hunter, and I'm sitting down here with Goodness Village's very own Jackie Ayo. Jackie, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. The weather's beautiful, and that always puts me in a good mood.
Beautiful. It is 100 degrees outside and muggy. I do not know what you're talking about.
Muggy.
Yeah, it is not pleasant outside.
There's a breeze. I'm
Here.
cold-blooded, so it's kind of a nice day.
I love that for you, and I'm saying inside the AC all day.
That's okay.
So Jackie, if you guys didn't know, Jackie is Goodness Village's volunteer coordinator. She's recently taken over that role, but she came on staff initially in 2021, right when we opened, before we had people or neighbors or really anything going around here. She's part of phase 1 at Goodness Village. So Jackie, how has the last 2 years been at Goodness Village?
It's been a journey, which is very stereotypical to say, but
Right.
it has been. We started out with nobody here, and so it was a lot of empty houses and us just wanting to get started and whatnot. But now it's been really nice. I love building rapport with people, seeing the difference in how I was even as a person then versus how I am now has been an amazing just personal growth journey within myself. And I have this job to thank for that for a lot of it. But yeah, it's been really nice to see how much has changed and how much is growing and how much we have to grow.
Yeah, you started on the team as one of our support staff members and kind of moved into case management. So you really have like a one-on-one relationship with like pretty much all of our neighbors, right?
For sure.
What have been a couple of things that have like either been interesting or surprised you working with our neighbors, especially seeing their growth in the last 2 years?
Well, for starters, we have a couple people who have been here from the very beginning, so for the full 2 years, and are just now getting social security applications submitted. So that's been amazing just to see that
Yeah.
process because it feels in a lot of situations that without the support of staff, a lot of this stuff probably would have been too overwhelming for them to do on their own. So it's been really amazing to see them place that trust in us and allow us to help them in that department.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think people don't really recognize that it takes time for folks to rest and recover after being
Mm.
unhoused for a year, 5 years, 10 years.
Right.
So we look at folks that have been here for 2 years and we say, oh, they're just getting their social security applications. And that's a huge win because they spent the last 2 years resting and recovering. And more importantly, building relationships with people here in the village, with neighbors, with other neighbors, with staff.
Mhm.
And this kind of is a great pivot over to what you get to do now as our
Right.
volunteer coordinator. So what does that even mean? What does volunteering at Goodness Village look like?
There's lots of opportunities. So if you want to sign up, let me know. But it's really an opportunity for you to kind of change your mindset about how you view homeless people.
Yeah.
For starters, we just recently had a volunteer connection day where we kind of mentioned that, like how the media views homeless people and how most people view homeless people without if you haven't had an interaction with them. And we actually had a couple volunteers say, like, I've been on the volunteer list for a while, but was too nervous to really do like driving or to do a community dinner because that prolonged interaction, they weren't sure what that was going to look like. So by us doing the volunteer connection day and kind of just giving them a more human view of our neighbors
Yeah.
allowed them to really kind of like be comfortable and realize like these are people too and they've just been through some tough stuff.
Yeah, what a concept.
Yeah.
Once you treat and see other human beings with the dignity and respect that they deserve, doesn't matter what their background is or what the situation is, if they, what led them into being unhoused, but the fact is that they're still people. They
Exactly.
deserve, dignity and humanity like everybody.
Exactly.
And now we have a program where we can really connect the dots between what people think about the unhoused community and who that population actually is.
Exactly. And especially once you hear their stories and you're like, you were a kid just like me at one time. You went through puberty just like me. Like we all went there's a couple people here with college degrees just like me. And you just happen to fall on hard times sometimes. It's not always drugs, it's not always mental health. It's really just you were 2 paychecks away from being unhoused and you're fine, but that person got caught under the
Yeah.
crosshairs. So yeah, it could be anybody and some of the people that we have are just those people.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to as we get to do more podcasts to actually sit down with neighbors and just hear
Mhm.
their stories. I know we're kind of doing this like, hey, what do you do at Goodness Village? What's your job?
Right.
And that's super cool, and we're excited to share that. But really, with the podcast, I'm really excited to sit down with neighbors and just we have I don't know, the numbers, but a number of neighbors have come up to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to be on the podcast or share my stories because I grew up in Livermore or I'm from the Tri
Mhm.
Valley." So there's such a depth to these awesome neighbors that we get to work with that we get to like hold those stories. I know Kim gets to one of her things that she says that she loves to hold and cherish stories that people don't hear anymore. Now we're
Mm,
an entire program that really gets to do that. And now
right.
with the good pod, now the entire world can hear, or at least the people that listen to the
Right,
podcast.
and there's gonna be some amazing stories because 'cause I've heard several amazing
Oh,
stories.
I bet. I remember a neighbor telling me how. So, Goodness Village is on, for the folks listening that don't know, Goodness Village shares a property with a church in town called Crosswinds. But the land we're on is called the Friesman Dairy, which has been part of the Livermore and Tri Valley community for 100 years. And I had a great conversation with a neighbor a couple months ago of how when she was a little girl, used to come to the Friesman Dairy with her grandparents and go hang out with Old Man Friesman and the dairy truck that's here on the front of the property. She
Mhm.
remembers seeing her grandpa and Old Man Friesman drive that thing around town.
Wow, drive it.
Right. It used to drive. This this dairy truck now has like barely has wheels. There's no engine. It
Right,
is
it's
not
all
a vehicle
rusted.
anymore. But just to connect the community as a whole,
Yeah,
which is
for
really
sure.
cool to see. And your job is fun because you are really the front line of people from the Tri Valley, Livermore, Dublin, Pleasanton, who want to make a difference and want to contribute,
Mhm.
but don't know how, but they want to be hands on. And that's what you get to do. Really connect those,
Right.
people from community to Goodness Village.
Right. And I feel like as I step more into the role, I realize that my job is less, it is coordinating, obviously, because when we have a need, I try to fill it with a volunteer. But it is also maintaining that relationship with them and helping them understand like some people have trauma, some people have just really hard things that they have to go through. So it's hard to build that trust. And so trying to just help the volunteers and like just people in general that don't work here kind of understand that it's going to take a little time, but it's always worth it because our people are really amazing.
Yeah. To build a relationship, what I've seen work is time and patience and understanding.
Hmm.
Um, Everybody has trauma to some extent, and unfortunately, the unhoused community is really susceptible to kind of the worst kinds. So when you've gone through the worst, you need time to rest and recover. But that doesn't mean that
Exactly.
people aren't irredeemable or they can't be restored or reclaim their
Hmm.
true potential,
Right.
which is just cool to see in our line of work here at Goodness Village.
Right.
I got one question for you.
Sure.
Have you listened to any new artists, albums, anything that you like to recommend for folks that I don't know why you know this, but Jackie has an incredible taste of music.
Thank you
She and
very
I
much.
share like albums and playlists and artists that we come across all the time, and it always makes all of our office spaces here on site just so it creates a vibe to say the least.
It really does create a vibe. It's nice to see the mood shift in the morning when people come in because I start my shift at 6 a.m.
That's early. That is very early.
And people say that they have that reaction all the time. As a morning person, it's not that bad. But I really, really take pride in coming in at the morning because I can really set the tone for the day, I feel like. Like when
Yeah.
I come in and bake cookies, I know everyone's going to be in a good mood for at least 2 hours.
That is, as somebody that has benefited from said cookies or breakfast foods or whatever Jackie is up to on
Right.
a, especially for some reason, Friday morning seems to be the
I
snack
try to
morning.
do it on Friday
Ah,
mornings. Family Feud Fridays and breakfast
is
or
that a thing?
cookies.
I've noticed Family Feud, but I didn't
Yeah.
know.
I try to do it on Friday mornings.
Jackie, the regent of vibes over here.
I try my best because it's really about the environment.
Totally.
People could say that they're bored because there's nothing going on, but you got to make something to go. You got to make something go on
Oh, so
sometimes.
true. So true.
Yeah, and there's something about walking into a house that smells good. But music,
Yes.
I do have a new song that I found. It's called "Batter" by Killer Tunes and Solana.
Ooh.
Yes, very
Okay.
nice.
I
Very
don't know
nice.
how the copyright stuff works, so I don't think we can play this on the
That's
podcast,
okay.
but I will look it up for sure. Everyone that's listening, look it up. Jackie
Yes.
has all the good vibes. Um, so that'll do it. Jackie, thank you for hanging out on the Good Pod.
Yay.
Something that we do to close the pod is how we close any staff meeting with
Yay.
our big old alligator clap. So imagine if you're folks at home, just your hands straight out in front, a big old clap at the count of 3. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Thanks for listening to the Goodness Village podcast. Production and recording done by our operations team here at the Village. Music was created by Club 88 member AJ Parr. If you want to know more about Club 88, this podcast, or Goodness Village, visit our website at gvlivermore.org. Don't forget, new episodes drop on Fridays. And thanks again for listening to The Good Pod.